Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
It's been a couple weeks, right? I can't remember what day it is.
Well, it's that time of year. We've been inundated with election stuff, but it's been a while, and we certainly haven't spoken since Tuesday's elections. So we're not like right on the heels of it, but I know we've had a couple days to let things air out and see how we're feeling. What's your take on Tuesday night?
I mean, I don't think anyone should be all that surprised. I mean, some of the margins were a little bigger than people thought, I guess, based on what the polling was going to indicate. Well, I guess bigger for Spanberger and Cheryl, maybe a little bit more narrow for Mamdani because the Sliwa vote dropped and Cuomo picked up some. But generally speaking, people should have assumed a good Democratic night in an off year when the incumbent president is not popular. That's a pretty standard result in the history of politics. It's not like in the first Trump term, he had good off years. You know, Trump had a bad, 2018 midterm, lost the House. I remember correctly. I guess Youngkin won. No. Youngkin won in 2021.
After Biden.
Right.
Yeah.
McAuliffe won in 2017. And Murphy won in 2017, right, in New Jersey.
So it's a big trend of, whoever wins the White House, the other party wins. But there was one surprise, sort of, not a huge surprise to me, but one race of interest was the attorney general race in Virginia, where you had this guy, Jay Jones, who had sent out some very violent texts about a Republican politician. And he ended up winning. He beat Jason Miyares pretty handily, although he certainly underperformed Spanberger at the top of the ticket, but still. And the funniest tweet I saw, I say funny, I mean, it's a serious topic, but still, the funniest tweet I saw was something to the effect of, Jay Jones could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose any voters. And Bill, you put this together with the Graham Plattner story, all the stuff that came out about him, and he's still winning by double. In the latest polling, he's up pretty big over the.
Oh, is there a new one?
No, but this is like over a week old. But the poll that came out, we talked about it already.
Okay, so there's been no new polling after that.
No, not that I'm aware.
Okay. I want to see some polling after, because that polling was pre-Nazi tattoo, so I want to see some polling after that point.
Nevertheless, Bill, I with the Virginia Attorney General victory of Jay Jones, the Democrat, I do think we are seeing maybe a trend of Democrats basically saying, well, we're not going to police our side either, that we need to fight fire with fire. And, we're not going to punish people for indiscretions just because Trump does it too, and he's worse, basically. Well, I'm not even saying that's we could say that's a bad thing for society, but it's hard to blame them in some respects.
I mean, it's going to be voter driven. If the voters don't punish, at minimum, the political and consultant class is not going to automatically say, "Oh, that's fatal." Throw this person under the bus. They might say, "Oh, maybe you can survive that one." I don't know enough about what Jones did in the aftermath. I didn't follow it close enough to say, did he do certain things to mitigate it? Is the thing they did was ignore it and just, eyes on the prize?
So what happened was, first of all, I'll paraphrase, but he had texted a female Republican state legislator whom rumors have it he was having some sort of an affair. He was out of office at this point. He was not holding office at this point, and he texted her, and he basically said violence should befall the then Speaker of the House in Virginia, Republican, and he said something to the effect of, he should watch his children die in their mother's arms. I mean, it was something pretty horrific, right?
Yeah.
And so then this Republican state legislator, who I think lost her election, ironically, on Tuesday night, she apparently released it. And so then once it's released, he did apologize for it. But, there were calls for him to get out of the race. I tell you when I always suspected that he may survive, but I tell you when I kind of knew he would. Obama came to town and did a rally with Spanberger and the lieutenant governor, and they let Jay Jones speak at this thing, and that suggested to me that they knew he might be able to pull it off.
We have lots of examples of things happening, online, people popping off, or it's any kind of kerfuffle that gets news coverage that draws the attention of people who are eternally online or obsessed about these things, and it just doesn't always trickle down to the rank and file voter. I mean,
there's a sense too that, like, number one, if you want, in the case of Plattner, Graham Plattner in Maine, if you want outsiders who've actually aren't career politicians, they're going to have some baggage, right? And number two, younger people, and Jay Jones is younger than us, and so is Plattner probably. They grew up with the internet. There's going to be stuff that they texted or tweeted or whatever. And people, it used to be people might say some crazy stuff after a few drinks, or they're trying to hit on a female lobbyist or politician, and it wasn't recorded. It wasn't, but now we have this digital footprint. So maybe we just need to accept that this is going to be the new normal.
Well, certainly for younger voters, millennial Gen Z, they grew up on the internet. They grew up popping off themselves and maybe regretting things that they did. And so they may have more charity towards others to do the same thing. We're in a Trump era where, Donald Trump is the dominant political figure for the last decade, and has definitely defined, reduced our standards, coarsened our dialogue. So,
which is what conservatives have warned about the whole time. That's
what's happening.
MTV's going to do it, or Hollywood's going to do it. They're going to slowly erode our values and our morals.
Well, here we the F are. Okay, this is the world that's been brought to us, and maybe it's not always going to be this way. Maybe we're going to find a way to pull ourselves back from the brink. We got lots of cases of these types of incidents not being politically fair.
Definitely. Well, Bill, you have a column in Washington Monthly today. You made a very interesting and I think important observation, right? So going into these midterms, so now we're officially into the 2026 midterms. It's no longer premature to talk about it. The midterm season is on. And, look, I think initially everyone thought, well, Democrats are going to certainly take the House because history predicts that the out party always has 18 out of 20 times. The out party, has a great midterm. But then we were like, there's going to be this redistricting, mid-decade redistricting, and they're going to steal. Republicans are going to, gerrymander 5 seats in Texas. Then Gavin Newsom. They're playing his music. He's off the top, to top rope. Gavin Newsom comes into the scene and he passes Prop 50 Tuesday night in California. Now, California is going to mitigate that by taking 5 seats. But Bill, the interesting thing is there is reason to believe, if you look at the results from Tuesday night, that some of that Texas redistricting might backfire. Tell us this story.
Well, I wrote about this back in August when they first did it. When you gerrymander, you are trying to distribute your reliable party's voters in such a way to maximize your majority vote in as many congressional districts as possible. You would look at voting patterns over several election cycles, so you're not just taking someone who was with you just recently, but someone you know is going to be with you consistently. And what appears to have happened, and Texas was already pretty gerrymandered. It wasn't an evenly divided.
Tom DeLay did a lot of this work a few years ago.
I do not believe that there are a fair amount of Democrats in Texas. It's not the deepest red state, but I do not believe that the congressional delegation was lining up, the share of the Republican delegation was lining up with the share of the Republican vote already. But Donald Trump's turning extra screws on people because we're looking at very likely a good Democratic midterm, and Trump's trying to hold down, batten down the hatches. What can we do to resist this tide? Hey, Governor Abbott. Hey, Texas legislature, can you squeeze out 5 more here? And there was reporting in the Texas Tribune that the local Texan Republicans are saying, if you get too cute here, you're going to spread the vote too thin, and it's not going to help us. You're going to jeopardize incumbents. But they relented to Trump, and what they did was they looked at just the 2024 vote, which was particularly good for Republicans with Latinos. There was a Latino shift to the right, not just in Texas, but nationally. And so they used that data to create 5 more favorable Republican districts, but reliant on those Latino votes. And there was already evidence in the summer that Latinos were drifting leftward nationally and in Texas. There was polling data to show this. And now we have actual results from elections in states with significant Hispanic populations, New Jersey and California. So you have and look, Latino's not a monolith, of course. So in New Jersey, it's Puerto Rican, Dominican.
Texas Hispanics are different than California Hispanics.
Well, but generally, with Mexican heritage, Texas, Arizona, California are a bit more similar than Florida, Northeast.
Yeah, because then you got the Cubans and Puerto Rican versus Mexican.
Right. I mean, if you're Puerto Rican, you're really not an immigrant, so it's not even like an immigration issue with you when you're Puerto Rican. But be that as it may, there actually were some similarities in the rightward shift in 2024, and so we saw Mickey Sherrill and Nate Cohn did an analysis of the New Jersey vote, which is not strictly based on just exit poll data, which showed Hispanic shifting to Democrats, but also in the individual voter data, you can glean patterns from, and you can see that there was, he said a 2.5% Democratic boost in turnout, but that doesn't account for the big margin she racked up. She had, and New Jersey is the place where Trump did really well, relatively speaking, in the Northeast. And it seems like that was temporary, and some of those recent Trump voters have now come back into the Democratic fold, and particularly Latinos. In California, you have several majority Latino districts that voted for counties that voted for Trump in 2024 that either voted for Newsom's Prop 50, which is designed to do to California what Abbott did in Texas in terms of redistricting, that Trump Latinos were voting for this Prop 50, and other places, majority Latino districts, counties, probably didn't win, but did much better than the Trump vote was last year. And on top of that, we have a fresh poll in Texas. When I wrote my article in August, Trump had 38% approval of Latinos, and now in the same poll, the University of Texas poll, it's now 32. So it was already coming down. It's coming down more. Like these should be alarm bells for Republicans. I mean, it's one thing if you thought, oh well, Trump's going to do this thing for Latinos by 2026, and they're going to turn around. Like, no, all Trump is doing here are things to Latinos, not things for Latinos. So you can't expect it to change anytime soon.
Well, and I think it probably comes down to affordability, right? I mean, that was the issue of 2024 was affordability. Trump ran on affordability. Biden was vulnerable because of inflation. And now it is Trump who is vulnerable to the affordability issue. And that probably accounts for a lot of those Hispanic votes, I suspect.
Well, the argument in 2024 was, hey, I know Trump talks a lot of stuff about immigration. He says all these intemperate things, but I'm really mad about prices, and he's promising to do something about that. So I'm going to put everything else aside and do that. Now he's doing like massive and haphazard immigration raids, which I think have genuine disruption in Latino families in Texas and elsewhere. And you're not doing anything about cost of living. And you're in the middle of a government shutdown. You're starting to feel the effects of that in terms of SNAP benefits, in terms of air travel. So it's really hard to see where the improvement's going to come. Now, Trump could. I mean, Trump said afterwards, we got to end this shutdown. He's acknowledging this is bad for Republicans politically. Now his solution, which is something that I even floated myself, so I don't want to give him a hard time about it, is end the filibuster, guys. Just end the filibuster, and we'll take care of this ourselves.
You know what he should do? My friend Brian Lundy says abandonment is the most underrated weapon in politics. He should give the Democrats what they want.
Well, I think he's going to have to. I mean,
they want Obamacare. They want the Obamacare subsidies to fix healthcare costs. He should give them that. That would be
there is logic to that. I mean, if you can't do it yourself, if Thune and the Senate Republicans say, look, we just don't have the votes to end the filibuster, sorry, and you recognize that the shutdown is hurting you, the only thing left to do is to compromise. And what's the worst thing about compromising? You give people more healthcare benefits and make less people mad at you? You do the political math. Suck it up.
It would be the most. Look, he would anger a small percentage of free market conservatives who have nowhere else to go, right? He might anger like the Club for Growth and Americans for Tax Reform, like 15 people. Everyone else would be happy, and he would have taken away the number one issue, not the number two issue. Maybe it's part of affordability. Healthcare costs are part of the affordability issue. He would have. It would be like a very devious thing to let the Democrats catch that car, but I don't think he'll do it because winning.
What other recourse is there?
It's to break the filibuster, like you said.
But I mean, it makes sense for Trump to try to do that first.
Yeah.
But if he can't get the votes there, he's painted into a corner. He's got no other way out.
Before we move on, Bill, I just want to circle back to Texas specifically. If you look at the map of Texas, the current map is deep red. Like the majority of the state is deep red. I'm talking about the congressional map, deep red. The new map, it's pink.
Right.
And so they have watered down Republican votes. House seats that used to win by 20 are now going to win by like 7, unless there's a year where Democrats are suddenly winning by 10. The surge, so you could have it backfire and certainly, if nothing else, certainly just undermine the whole concept of the 5 seats that they were going to draw themselves.
And what if the scandal-marred Paxton?
Mm-hmm.
His last name right.
He's the Attorney General who is running for Senate now.
Right. He wants to try to John Cornyn in the primary. Has a good chance of doing it. He might be a weak ticket topper for Texas, and you might even get a genuine. If it's a real wave year, and it's not crazy to say it could be a wave year for Democrats. Stuff happens.
So in the Senate,
waves.
I just gave a speech in Texas yesterday. And I also recently interviewed Bruce Melman, and we talked about this too. So I'm up to speed on the Senate, and I'll just a quick update on that. So obviously everybody expected before the whole gerrymandering thing, expected Democrats should take the House because Republicans have such a slim majority in the House anyway. The Senate's going to be much tougher. Democrats are winning. They're defending 4 contested seats, so they have to win. Democrats would have to win all 4 of those contested seats they're defending, and then go on the road and flip 4 more seats. Now, some of them seem very doable, right? North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper certainly seems like he could win that, flip that seat. That's Tom Tillis retiring. Maine could be interesting. We'll see. But then you got to go into like Texas, Ohio, Nebraska. That's where it gets dicey. The idea that but it's not, unlikely. Yes, I would say like highly unlikely, but not impossible anymore, right?
I mean, weird things happen in wave years. They have the potential for like legit candidates in these states, and I mean, there's debate. Do you want the old bull like Sherrod Brown in Ohio, was one statewide before? Or do you want the fresh face because people are mad about gerontocracy? That you. In Maine, they're going to have that between Janet Mills, the current governor, and Graham Plattner.
She's 76, and he is scandal plagued. So
right, but maybe the scandals don't matter as much anymore. I mean, and this is for Maine to figure out. I can't fully adjudicate you.
I'm sorry, Rob. Speaking of Maine, I had forgotten, but Jared Golden. Did you see this? He is retiring.
Yes.
He's a Democrat who has won a Trump +9 seat. And so I just felt like that was kind of a devastating blow, because here Democrats finally had the wind at their back, and they're fighting over these, a couple seats here, a couple seats there. And now to lose, probably, right? I think they're probably going to lose that.
They'll probably lose that seat. But wave year. So again, I don't want to declare it over at this point. But and I don't think it's going to be coming down to one seat to control the House. It really shouldn't come down to one seat.
Right now it's pretty close. It's not
right now, but it should be a good Democratic year. Typically you gain like 20 or so seats in an off year. You might argue it's going to be fewer because of the polarization, but it really shouldn't be just 2 or 3 that they're picking up. So I think it's a weatherable event. Golden, probably should have figured he could have withstood the storm for that reason. Again, I don't know what exactly is going through his head.
He said he could win, but it's mainly his. If you read his article or his kind of op-ed, I guess, in the Banger newspaper about this, he said that the violence and the threats of violence last year, his family had to spend Thanksgiving in a hotel because of threats of violence, and just the entire vibe out there, or the anger, the polarization, the tribalism, all of that is why he's leaving.
Well, and I
this guy's a former Marine too.
I know.
Why is it these guys keep leaving?
I think people should take it. Sometimes this seems like excuses. You're just going to lose, and you come up with an excuse not to run. I wouldn't assume that in this case. I think he probably had a good chance of winning. He's a proven winner in that district, and it's going to be a good Democratic year. Don't discount the reality that for a lot of people, these jobs aren't worth it. It's not that much fun to be in Congress anymore. It's a lot of intense work to get to Congress. Campaigns are not fun. Campaigns are a real trial. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of time away from family. And for what? So you can argue with people and not get anything done, be around a bunch of jackholes who aren't serious about governing? What's the point? It's hard to make the rational case for doing it when you're not even really delivering for people in a Washington that has just become a stage for content creators and not serious legislators.
Yeah, and that's something else he said, that he's like, I could get elected, but what good would it do? Like, I'm not sure that I would have the chance to make much of a difference anyway. I'm paraphrasing.
Right, but I mean the irony of it is that if people who do want to legislate seriously don't run for office, you're ceding the field to the worst people. I mean, This is the problem with you talk about coarsening the discourse. You're driving out people who you need to make democracy function.
Yeah, this reminded me a lot of, who was that? There was a Republican congressman from Wisconsin who was like a former Marine or something that retired. He was young and seemed to be somewhat sane. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't remember offhand.
He retired like a year or two ago. It's just, I think it was Hayek who said that in a authoritarian regime, the worst get to the top. And I think the corollary to that is that the best get out while they can. And so what we have is this perverse situation where good people are pushed out and bad people get, scratch their way to the top, because the things that get you ahead are bad things. Anyway, Bill, speaking of bad people and doing bad things, let's end on this one. Have you seen the story, the controversy about Nick Fuentes, the white nationalist and Holocaust denier? He went on Tucker Carlson's show. Tucker got a lot of criticism for platforming him and sort of laundering his ideas with kind of a fluff interview. And then Kevin Roberts, I think it's the guy's name, the head of the Heritage Foundation, weighed in and basically said, Heritage will have no enemies to our right. That in turn, I mean, this story just keeps on going. Has it penetrated the Northampton bubble?
I don't think it's top of mind of all the things that have been going on, but I'm aware of about as much as you've said. I didn't listen to the interview. Yeah, I'm kind of. I mean, it's not new. I feel that the Trump version of the Republican Party has its flirtations with the white supremacist far right, and I mean, with Joe Kent, who's the counterterrorism director, has white supremacist ties. So that's not shocking to me. We've seen, I feel, in the past year, stories about divisions and tensions within the modern Republican Party, and they don't seem to really translate into genuine division on the ground. I mean, maybe it's sort of parallel to the Attorney General Jones thing. Something happens in the news, you think it's going to be a big deal, and on the ground, just people shrug their shoulders at it, or even necessarily aware of it. Having said that, you do tend to see when a party is in power, divisions form, and then that can end up being truly debilitating. So I just want your take on it. Do you feel like this is just one kind of, thing for the eternally online to futz about, but doesn't really matter? I mean, these people have made their bed, they're going to lie in it, and it's not going to change anything. Or are you seeing some genuine upset and splintering going on that's going to make it harder for Republicans to maximize vote in 2026?
Yeah, I would sort of take it away from the immediate 2026 framing. Like, I don't know if it's going to matter to the midterms, but I'm telling you, Bill. So if you read deeply into these stories, like, for example, I think the New York Post had this one. They interviewed a Heritage Foundation staffer who said there are a lot of Heritage interns who agree with Fuentes. So this racist ideology and anti-Semitic ideology has made its way into the upper reaches of this, not the upper reaches, but it has infiltrated.
Well, there's a whole tech scandal that came out a few weeks ago that Politico wrote about. Now that I'm not burying my nose in it. I'm like, well, of course there are racists in the Republican Party now that have racist text. But
the young Republicans,
text,
which I love Hitler, I think was the quote or something that came out of that. And again, this is something of a bipartisan phenomenon. Like, so one of the interesting things about this is, and I'm not the first person to make this parallel, but you remember a few years ago where you had people like the editor of the New York Times who was dealing with these young left-wing progressives sort of uprising. And you almost have the inmates running the asylum where the young Gen Z or millennial staffers are taking over, and the older boomers and Gen Xers are just like throwing their hands up like that. There's a sense that is happening, that it's the young people in the conservative movement, in the right, and the Republican Party are embracing these kind of radical ideas, and they are more powerful than the so-called bosses. the presidents of these think tanks, and they can't basically control them anymore. And I had just yesterday in Maine, this young guy comes up to me. I think he's like 22, looks like a young Republican. I mean, he comes up to me and he said, all my friends watch Nick Fuentes. And he's like, and they don't all agree with him, of course. But they think he's very entertaining and funny. And they all my friends watch him, and I was like, 20 years ago, all your friends would have been George W. Bush boosters. I guarantee you. And so it speaks to the culture, which is pretty wild. And the other weird thing, this is the thing that you mentioned earlier, there's all these blow-ups, right? Like Laura Loomer versus Marjorie Taylor Greene versus Tucker. They're calling each other out. The thing that I didn't fully get is like, why all of a sudden was this the one that really sparked so much consternation and conversation? And I don't know if you noticed this, Bill, but Nick Fuentes said that he became radicalized by Mark Levin, the radio host, Mark Levin, who is a Jewish, I think he worked for Reagan at a certain point. And he initially was against Trump before he got sucked into the MAGA vortex. And so I found that really ironic that I feel like these conservatives who ended up going along with Trump, playing footsie with the extremists and kind of appeasing MAGA, hoping it would eat them last, have now created this monster that has actually turned on them.
So what I hear from you, it seems like people on the right are not tired of this. No one's really looking to sort of turn the page from Trumpism. They're looking to extend it and perhaps worsen it, if it's even possible to get worse. Is there any part of the Republican Party that's like, I just need this to end. I just need to get back to normal here. I'm so sick of living this way or having my party be this way. We need to have someone who's a page turner kind of voice.
Now, I mean, it seems like if I could sort of define what has happened, it's like all the never Trumpers like me have been purged from the party, right? From the Republican Party, from, the heritage part of the conservative movement, all that. But there were still people like Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and Stephen Moore who, they were mainstream conservatives. They tried to put a happy face on Trumpism, and I think they realized that this is where their bread is buttered. This is where the audience is. And maybe they tried to do some good to tame the worst aspects of MAGA and Trumpism. And now I think the revolution finally has gotten to them, right? It's like when Robespierre gets, the gallows or eventually the revolution turns on its own. And I think that these people who probably should have been never Trumpers, who probably should have stood up against Trumpism, because let's be honest, I knew where this was going 10 years ago. So did you. And I guess they did too, but they thought maybe they could ride this wild beast or tame it or whatever. And I think what has just happened, we're just now seeing where that is now untenable, and it's turning on the people who tried to placate it and tried to play footsie with it. And you hate to see it happen.
Do we think that? I mean, I think you're in agreement that's going to be a good Democratic year in 2026, most likely, unless there's some sort of real crazy sea change. That's hard.
I think so, because I think the economy is not going to get better.
Yeah.
I think AI, which has been helping Trump up until now, is going to turn against him for a variety of reasons. Unless the Supreme Court overturns the tariffs, that's going to continue to cause problems with affordability. I think the immigration stuff, not only does it hurt him in terms of kind of human rights, but also in terms of the economy. So I think affordability is where it's at. I think affordability is going to stay bad. And I think that history and all the predictors would suggest that's it should be a good year for Democrats anyway. So,
and you would think that would prompt a rethink from Republicans. Maybe this doesn't work. Maybe this style of narcissistic governing doesn't work.
But they don't rethink. Like, look at how they responded to Tuesday night. George W. Bush came out. Barack Obama came out after bad midterms. Bill Clinton comes out after a midterm. I lost you for a second there.
Yeah, I knocked the cable out.
Bill Clinton comes out after the 94 midterms and completely says the era of big government's over. We're going to end welfare as we know it, all that. I mean, he hires Dick Morris, right? So, Bush comes out and talks about a thumping, but the Trump folks, I don't think do that kind of thinking or concessions or.
Trump world will not, but will somebody else in the Republican Party do that thinking?
I think it has to get. Remember, Bill used to have a theory that a party has to lose 3 presidential elections before it has its come to Jesus moment. I don't know if it's going to take 3, but Donald Trump has been magic all these years. He survived things, an assassination attempt, the Access Hollywood video. There's a sense that the guy is magic, and so it's going to take a lot more than a bad midterm for them to turn against him.
It would be a second bad midterm.
Yeah, it's not enough.
I mean, he doesn't have a perfect win-loss record.
I agree, but you're not in a cult, Bill. If you're in a cult, if you're a cult member, it takes a lot before the spell is broken.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Well, it's good to see you, man.
You too. Anything that you have to plug?
Yeah. Well, so I have a column out at the LA Times, and also you can read it in my Substack today, where I spell out my take on the whole Tucker Fuentes Heritage Foundation kerfluffle.
All right, and see my column about the election results and the impact on Texas redistricting at the Washington Monthly, WashingtonMonthly.com.
Awesome, and we'll see you guys back here in the DMZ soon. Thanks, Bill.
All right.